Have you ever wondered what would happen if God simply left? Not in anger, not as punishment, but quietly, like a man who endured for a long time, waited for a long time, and suddenly realized, enough. Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet of America, said that such a day might come, a day when humanity will be left alone, without protection, without an answer to prayers, without light in the soul. And the most terrifying thing, that day will not come with thunder from the heavens. It will begin with silence. Cayce predicted the future in his sleep. Thousands of trances, diseases, wars, catastrophes. He saw it all. But one of his phrases still troubles researchers to this day. The time will come when God will turn away from man, because man turned away first. Do you feel the chill in those words? He wasn't speaking about the end of the world, but about the end of connection. When prayers become empty, and the inner voice are barely audible, when even churches are full, but hollow inside. It used to be different, didn't it? You would wake up in the morning and hear the world living, the creak of the floor, the cooing of pigeons, the whisper of dawn. And now, only the screen. Your fingers reach for the phone by themselves. It feels like you're talking to someone, but inside it's getting quieter. Have you noticed that? Sometimes people write in the comments, "I don't understand why I feel anxious, but everything seems fine." Maybe it's because God started speaking more softly and we forgot how to listen. Cayce didn't say that God would disappear. He would simply step aside. Like a father who can no longer watch as his children destroy each other, like light that becomes unnecessary to those who chose darkness. He wrote that the signs are already visible. People are losing not only faith in God, but faith in each other. Parents against children, nations against themselves. A world where technology has become an idol and the soul a useless burden. Sounds familiar? First, man will replace God with machines, then when with laws, then when with himself. That's what Cayce said. And then he said, the day without God will begin. But he didn't describe a catastrophe. He saw a sky without color, people without gaze, a world where everyone is absorbed in their own self, and the silence between hearts impenetrable. An old man from Virginia once said he woke up one night and realized something had changed. The air was heavy, like before a storm, but the sky was clear. I felt, he said, as if the world had gone silent, as if someone had turned off God. Do you feel like it's already happening? Cayce claimed. That day will creep in slowly. Through indifference, through the habit of pain, through smiles without warmth. He wrote, when there are too many cold hearts on earth, God will fall silent. And then man will hear the void. Imagine, morning, everything as usual. The sun rises, people hurry to work, but something is wrong. But you open your eyes and feel that the world is dead, not physically and spiritually. The air is heavier, time seems to stop, and then that day will come. But Cayce warned, those who keep their faith will hear the call. It will be quiet, but it will save. He said that God will not abandon everyone, he will give a choice, and everyone will have a chance to return. And you, would you hear that call? Would you recognize his silence? Or would you think it's just fatigue, just another day? Cayce said, God waits until man himself wants to return, and when that happens, the darkness will tremble. America, he said, will be the first to feel the silence of the sky. But perhaps it is here that the first light will flare, where someone still knows how to love, and in 1 minute I will tell you why the first sign will appear there, and how to recognize it. Cayce said that everything would begin not with war, and not with a catastrophe, but with exhaustion, that thick, unnoticed kind of exhaustion when the body still moves, but the soul no longer does. He saw how America, the land of faith, hope, and great dreamers, was slowly losing its soul, not through evil but through indifference, through tired faces in the subway, through millions of conversations without meaning, through technologies that make life convenient, but leave the heart empty. He predicted a time when people would stop praying, not because they no longer believed, but because they no longer saw the need, when they would say, "God is within us," and replace him with psychology, when an altar would hold a screen, and then people would begin to worship themselves. Have you noticed this? How many times have you opened a social network just for a minute and lost an hour, and then caught yourself with a strange feeling? There is noise, news, voices all around, but inside, silence. Not peace, but emptiness. When people start talking to machines more often than to each other, distance will begin, Cayce said. It's as if he saw our century. There will be devices through which one can see and hear each other across distances, but people will become ever more lonely. And indeed it happened. A woman wrote to Cayce in the 1930s, "It seems I am surrounded by voices, but all of them are far away, and near me, no one. Almost 100 years have passed, and that letter sounds like it was written today. Millions are connected to the network, but no one hears anyone. Everyone speaks, no one listens. We hear words, but not feelings." And Cayce warned, "When the ability to listen disappears, the voice of God will disappear." He said, "The first sign of the coming day without God will appear in the sky, not in the stars and not in the sun, way in silence. Scientists will notice strange fluctuations in the atmosphere, the disappearance of natural rhythms that have accompanied the earth since the beginning of time. Birds will fly differently. The sea will sound dull, as if someone turned off the background of life. People who are spiritually sensitive will wake up in the middle of the night with the feeling that something is gone. They will not understand what exactly, but their hearts will feel a cold that was never there before. And you, have you noticed that the world has become quieter? Not outside, inside. As if someone turned down the volume of life itself." Cayce wrote, "This is not a catastrophe. It is the silence of God, caused by our own deafness. He has not left. We have stopped hearing." But he added, "When the darkness becomes complete, a light will ignite in the sky, not a physical one, but a spiritual one. Those who have kept their faith will see it first." He called this light a call home, to the place where love still remains. A young farmer from Kentucky told a story in 1958. "At night I went out into the field and suddenly realized that the sky was breathing, as if someone quietly sighed above the earth, and I felt calm, as if someone was near." Maybe that was the sign itself. Do you believe that God can speak not through thunder, but through a light in the heart? But in Cayce's archives they found something that gave researchers goosebumps. He left a note mentioning 3 signs of the approaching day. The first, days without dreams. People will stop seeing dreams, as if the subconscious has been switched off. The second, silence in places of power. Where peace was once felt, there will be emptiness. The third, adults will stop crying, not because they are strong, but because they are drained. He wrote, "This is not the end. This is a warning, the last chance to hear." If people do not respond, Cayce wrote, the second stage will begin. He called it the time of mirrors, when humanity will start to see in others only a reflection of itself, pain, anger, fear. Then, he said, man will begin to destroy not his enemy, but his own reflection. Isn't that what's happening now? Everyone is certain that the truth belongs only to them. The louder the argument, the quieter the voice of conscience. People have stopped seeking truth. They seek justification, and the mirror does not forgive. Cayce warned, when darkness settles in human hearts, God cannot enter, until man himself opens the door. The world will become like glass. Everyone will see only their own reflection. And the darker the soul, the more frightening the image in the mirror. But darkness is not all-powerful. It cannot see those who know how to be grateful. The grateful have a different rhythm of the heart. Sometimes a single thank you can break the circle of darkness. Cayce wrote, "This day is not the end, it is a test. Not the end of the world, the end of self-deception." And then he said, "There will appear those who will endure." He called them the keepers of silence. Through them, the world will once again hear the voice of God. Cayce said that the keepers of silence would not appear in temples or among preachers. They would live among us, in houses with faded curtains, in cities where children's laughter hasn't been heard for a long time. Simple people, without sanctity, without loud words. Those who in the darkest night do not lose the ability to feel. They will not shout about faith. They will simply be kind when kindness becomes a rarity. They are the last spark, a reminder that God is still near. You may have seen them, a woman bringing her neighbor a bowl of soup, though she can barely stand herself, a taxi driver smiling at every passenger, even on a hard day, a teacher who doesn't abandon the children, even when everyone else has given up. They do not wait for gratitude, and they simply do good. And it is through them, Cayce said, that God still breathes in this world. He saw the moment when humanity would finally realize the divine is not in miracles but in kindness, in every simple act, in the warmth of a glance, in forgiveness, in silent support. But when the connection with God is broken, Cayce wrote, man will understand what he has lost, not power, not order, but love. It will hurt, but it won't be too late, he said. Through pain we will remember who we were. He described a vision, a vast city flooded with artificial light, millions of people with bowed heads, each inside their own screen. And only one boy lifted his eyes to the sky and whispered, "She's gone." It was a symbol, the moment when God falls silent. After that, Cayce wrote, the time of mirrors will begin in its full meaning. Each person will start to see only what they fear within themselves. Some, greed; others, loneliness; still others, helplessness. The world will not collapse because of disasters, but because of the loss of meaning. Everything will turn into a reflection of fear, love, faith, politics. Everything will become a game of mirrors. People will reach for the light, but not for the one that illuminates, for the one that blinds. Do you feel as if it's already begun? As if the light around us has become brighter, but colder? But darkness is not all-powerful. It cannot see those who know how to be grateful. Sometimes one single ray, a small act, a simple "thank you," is enough to stop the crack in the world from growing. As long as a person can be grateful, they are not alone. And yet, Cayce said, even in the darkest times, hope will not disappear. When the night becomes the longest, a light will flash in the sky, not physical but spiritual. That light is the call home. Some researchers believed that Cayce was describing not a catastrophe, but a spiritual wave that would pass through the planet. He said, only pure hearts will withstand it. The rest, unable to face the truth about themselves, will collapse from within. The trial is not in suffering, but in truth. When a person sees himself without a mask and decides whether he can forgive himself. One man who studied Cayce once confessed, when I read his texts I got scared, not of his prophecies, but of the fact that he was writing about me. I realized that I had long stopped hearing. Cayce said, God will not abandon the one who knows how to love. A simple phrase, but perhaps the most important, because when everything falls silent, love will remain the only light. That cannot be turned off. That's why Cayce advised people to prepare, not with supplies, but with their hearts. Strengthen the spirit, not the walls. When God falls silent, only the Spirit will guide you. He also saw the ending. The earth, having passed through silence, will come alive again, not outwardly, but inwardly. People who have survived the emptiness will begin to hear once more. And that sound will not be thunder from heaven, but a quiet whisper inside. I was here all along. But before that happens, humanity will have to cross one more boundary. Cayce called it the trial of choice. and perhaps it has already begun. The trial of choice will not look like judgment. There will be no thunder. The sky will not split open. It will begin quietly, within each of us. Every person will one day look into a mirror, he wrote, and see not a face, but eyes that no longer hold faith. At that moment, one will have to decide to stay the same or to remember what it means to love. He explained, God does not leave. He simply takes a step back so that man can finally grow, like a father letting go of his son so he may learn the value of home. That day will be frightening, not because of thunder or signs, but because all falsehood will vanish. When God falls silent, everything unreal will collapse. Only you and your essence will remain. Many will start looking for someone to blame, in politics, in religion, in others. But the answer is not outside. The one who blames does not hear. The one who listens begins to understand. Cayce wrote, "The silence of God is not punishment, it is a mirror, and humanity will see itself truly for the first time. If it can withstand that gaze, it will be reborn. After the day without God will come the morning of a new earth. People will begin to live not from fear, but from light." Can you imagine what that would be like when the air becomes cleaner, when a connection between hearts returns, when there's no need to shout, because listening is enough? You will recognize that day by the eyes of the children, he said. They will look at the sky and see not light but a reflection of themselves. And only then will adults understand. We lost not faith, but the meaning of being human. But even in that moment, Cayce saw a sign of salvation. When the sky becomes silent and prayer finds no answer, a final fire will ignite in the heart of man, the desire to love. And if even one person lights that flame, God will return. Do you feel how simple and how terrifying that is? Not prophets, not saints. Ordinary people can restore the connection with the Creator. He wrote, "The day without God is not a date, it is a state of the soul. It could come as soon as tomorrow. It begins where a person stops embracing, where children search for love in likes, where truth sounds quieter than advertising." But Cayce believed darkness is not eternal. When man realizes that God is not in temples, but in the heart, the silence will end. And one day, the world will seem to take a breath. Those who kept kindness will hear a faint chime, the sound of returning light. At the end of his life, Cayce said, "God does not leave. He waits until man remembers why he lives." Maybe that day is near. Maybe it's beginning right now in everyone who listens to these words. If you feel anxiety, cold, emptiness, it's not fear, it's a call to return. Tonight, turn off your screen for 3 minutes. Just listen to your home. If there is silence there, don't be afraid, say to it, "I remember," and perhaps you'll hear a reply before it becomes too quiet, while there is still a chance. When that day comes, remember this, look inside yourself. If you find love there, then God is still here, and maybe He never left.